The terminal halls of John F. Kennedy International Airport have never witnessed anything quite like this. Row after row of America's finest minds stand in serpentine lines, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and heartbreak. These aren't refugees fleeing war-torn nations. These are the architects of tomorrow, the dreamers who built Silicon Valley, the visionaries who put electric cars on our roads and rockets in our skies. Tonight, they're fleeing the country that once promised them the stars. The departure boards flicker with destinations that read like a who's who of global innovation. Zurich, Toronto, Singapore, Stockholm. But it's not wanderlust driving this mass migration. It's survival. When America chose to exile its greatest innovator, it signed the death warrant for its own future. The brain drain has begun, and it's hemorrhaging faster than anyone dared imagine. Dr. Sarah Chun, a 34-year-old artificial intelligence researcher whose algorithms power everything from medical diagnoses to climate modeling, clutches her boarding pass to Geneva. Her voice trembles as she speaks, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what she's witnessing. "I came to America 15 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a dream," she says, her accent still carrying traces of her native Taiwan. "I believed in the American promise, that merit mattered, that innovation was sacred, that the best ideas would rise to the top regardless of politics. But when they deported the man who embodied that promise, they killed something fundamental about what made America great. The numbers are staggering, and they're growing by the hour." According to leaked documents from the Department of Homeland Security, over 400,000 skilled workers have initiated departure proceedings in the past 6 months. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're the lifeblood of American innovation walking out the door. MIT reports that 67% of its international PhD students have already accepted positions abroad. Stanford's computer science department has lost 45% of its research faculty to European institutions. The California Institute of Technology has seen its aerospace engineering program virtually decimated as researchers flee to countries where their work is valued, not vilified. But the story gets darker. These aren't just individual departures. Their ecosystem collapses. When Dr. Michael Rodriguez, the leading researcher in quantum computing at Google, announced his move to the University of Toronto, 17 members of his team followed him. When Professor Lisa Wong, whose breakthrough in renewable energy storage could have revolutionized the electric grid, accepted a position at ETH Zurich, she took her entire research division with her. The domino effect is creating intellectual ghost towns in what were once the world's most vibrant innovation hubs. The Silicon Valley that once hummed with the energy of 1,000 startups now feels like a morgue. Venture capitalists who once fought over the next big thing now find themselves investing in companies that exist only on paper, their founders having fled to more welcoming shores. The legendary coffee shops where billion-dollar ideas were born over lattes now serve bitter brew to empty tables. The Valley of Dreams has become the Valley of Silence, and the echo of departing footsteps grows louder each day. What makes this exodus particularly devastating is its precision. These aren't random departures. They're surgical strikes against America's competitive advantage. The researchers leaving aren't just smart, they're the smartest. They're the ones who hold the patents, who understand the cutting-edge technologies, who can see around corners that others haven't even noticed yet. They're the secret sauce that made American innovation the envy of the world, and now they're taking that recipe elsewhere. The international response has been swift and strategic. Canada launched Operation Brain Gain within weeks of the first major departures, offering fast-tracked residency and tax incentives to American researchers. Switzerland created the Innovation Excellence Program, essentially rolling out the red carpet for displaced American talent. Singapore announced a billion-dollar fund specifically designed to attract American tech workers. Even smaller nations like Estonia and Finland have gotten into the game, offering digital nomad visas and startup incubators specifically targeting American refugees from their own country's policies. The irony is crushing. The same country that once built its scientific dominance by attracting the world's best minds. Einstein fleeing Nazi Germany, von Braun designing rockets, countless others seeking freedom to pursue their dreams, is now driving away its own Einstein generation. The land that once promised, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, has become the land of take your brilliant, your innovative, your driven masses yearning to create something new and get out. The psychological toll is evident in every conversation, every interview, every farewell gathering. These aren't just career moves, they're divorces from the American dream. Dr. James Patterson, a biomedical engineer whose work on cancer treatment has saved thousands of lives, breaks down as he describes packing up his laboratory at Johns Hopkins. "I've spent 20 years building something here," he says, his voice cracking. 20 years of late nights, of breakthrough moments, of believing that science could make America better. Now I'm reduced to shipping my life's work to Amsterdam because the country I serve doesn't want me anymore. The ripple effects extend far beyond laboratories and lecture halls. The small businesses that depend on these high-skilled workers are closing their doors. The restaurants near research campuses sit empty. The housing market in tech corridors is collapsing as demand evaporates. The local economies that grew fat and happy on innovation dollars are now facing their own reckoning. The barista who served coffee to Nobel laureates now serves unemployment lines. The dry cleaner who pressed the shirts of breakthrough inventors now presses nothing but worry about how to pay rent. But perhaps most heartbreaking are the personal stories buried within the statistics. The graduate student who will never defend her thesis because her advisor fled to Berlin. The young entrepreneur whose startup died when his entire technical team accepted positions in Toronto. The high school student who dreamed of studying at MIT, only to discover that the professors who made MIT legendary are now teaching at the University of Cambridge. These are the hidden casualties of a policy that prized ideology over intelligence, politics over progress. The departures aren't just random. They're following a pattern that reveals the true scope of the catastrophe. The morning flights to Europe are packed with researchers fleeing before their visas expire. The afternoon flights to Asia carry engineers who've already secured positions at companies that promise to value their contributions. The evening flights to Australia take with them the dreamers who still believe in a future where science and politics can coexist. Each departure is a small death, a tiny amputation of American potential. What's particularly devastating is the lost institutional knowledge. These aren't just individuals leaving, they're libraries of expertise walking out the door. The senior researcher who understands the intricate details of a defense project that took decades to develop. The lab director who knows which experiments failed and why, saving future researchers years of wasted effort. The department head who has the relationships and trust necessary to secure funding for basic research. This knowledge can't be replaced by hiring new graduates or importing talent from other countries. It's gone, taking with it decades of American investment in scientific advancement. The international scientific community has watched this exodus with a mixture of opportunity and horror. On one hand, countries are gaining access to talent they could never have attracted under normal circumstances. On the other hand, they're witnessing the self-destruction of the scientific superpower that has driven global progress for generations. The European Union has quietly established a task force to manage the influx of American researchers, while Asian nations are expanding their research facilities to accommodate the incoming talent. The world is scrambling to catch the falling stars of American innovation before they burn out completely. The psychological impact on those who remain is equally profound. The researchers who haven't left yet, either because they can't, won't, or haven't found the right opportunity, are working in an environment poisoned by uncertainty and fear. The collaborative spirit that once defined American research has been replaced by suspicion and isolation. The free exchange of ideas that drove breakthrough discoveries has been chilled by the knowledge that today's colleague might be tomorrow's deportee. The optimism that once fueled late-night lab sessions has been replaced by the pragmatic question, how long before I have to leave too? The transformation is happening faster than anyone predicted. In Geneva, Switzerland, what was once a quiet research district has exploded into a bustling innovation hub practically overnight. The locals call it Little Silicon Valley, but the comparison doesn't do justice to what's emerging. This isn't just a transplant of American tech culture. It's evolution, the next phase of human innovation freed from the constraints of politics and prejudice. The cafes buzz with conversations in a dozen languages. The whiteboards and rented offices overflow with equations that could reshape reality. and the energy is electric with possibility. Dr. Sarah Chun, the AI researcher we met at JFK, now runs the European Center for Ethical Artificial Intelligence, a research institute that didn't exist 6 months ago. Her team of 47 researchers represents the cream of American academia, refugees from MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, and Carnegie Mellon who found each other in exile and decided to build something unprecedented. Their breakthrough in quantum neural hybrid computing, announced just last week, represents a 5-year leap beyond anything happening in American laboratories. The irony is bitter. The research that could have made America the undisputed leader in the next technological revolution is now being developed by American minds working under Swiss flags. The numbers tell a story that should terrify anyone who understands the economics of innovation. The patent applications filed by American expatriates in their new countries have increased by 340% in the past year. The European Union reports that research output from American-born scientists now represents 23% of their total scientific publications, up from 3% just 2 years ago. Canada's tech sector has grown by 180% since launching Operation Brain Gain, with former American researchers founding 847 new companies in Toronto alone. Meanwhile, American research institutions are posting record numbers of vacant positions that remain unfilled for months, their funding slowly being redirected to countries that actually want to use it. But the real devastation becomes clear when you look at what's happening to American children. In Palo Alto, the epicenter of what was once the world's most dynamic innovation ecosystem, the local high school has had to cancel its advanced computer science program because there aren't enough qualified teachers left. The summer internship programs that once gave teenagers their first taste of cutting-edge research have been shuttered because the labs are empty. The science fairs that once showcased the next generation of American innovators now feature projects that would have been considered elementary just a few years ago. An entire generation of American students is being robbed of the mentorship and inspiration that previous generations took for granted. The corporate response has been swift and brutal. Google has announced the closure of its Mountain View headquarters, relocating its core research operations to Dublin and Tel Aviv. Apple has quietly moved its advanced manufacturing research to Singapore, citing workforce availability concerns. Microsoft has established its new AI research division in Montreal, staffed almost entirely by former American researchers who followed their expertise north. These aren't just business decisions. They're votes of no confidence in America's ability to compete in the knowledge economy. The defense implications are staggering and largely hidden from public view. The aerospace engineers who once designed America's most advanced fighter jets are now working for European defense contractors. The cryptographers who protected America's digital infrastructure are now securing other nations' communications. The materials scientists who developed next-generation armor are now innovating for foreign militaries. The brain drain isn't just an economic disaster. It's a national security catastrophe unfolding in slow motion. Perhaps nowhere is the transformation more visible than in the realm of medical research. The National Institutes of Health has lost 34% of its research staff, including some of the world's leading experts in cancer treatment, genetic therapy, and infectious disease. The ongoing research into treatments for Alzheimer's, diabetes, and heart disease has been severely compromised as principal investigators have fled to countries where their work is valued. The cruel irony is that American patients will eventually benefit from these discoveries, but only after paying premium prices to license treatments developed by American minds working under foreign flags. The educational system is experiencing its own collapse. MIT has announced the closure of 3 research departments due to faculty shortages. Stanford has suspended its doctoral programs in 2 fields because there aren't enough professors to supervise dissertations. The University of California system has seen enrollment in graduate programs drop by 40% as international students choose to study elsewhere, following their preferred professors to new institutions. The pipeline of American scientific talent isn't just drying up, it's being systematically redirected to other countries. The psychological warfare is perhaps the most insidious aspect of this disaster. The researchers who remain live in constant fear that they might be next, that their work might be deemed too sensitive, too international, too collaborative for the new America. The paranoia has infected every aspect of academic life, from the careful vetting of conference presentations to the self-censorship of research proposals. The free exchange of ideas that once made American universities the envy of the world has been replaced by a culture of suspicion and fear that stifles innovation at its source. The international scientific community has had to restructure itself around America's absence. The major conferences that once rotated through American cities now avoid them entirely, citing visa concerns and the exodus of key participants. The collaborative research projects that once centered on American institutions have been relocated to more welcoming countries. The informal networks of researchers that once spanned continents now route around America, like internet traffic avoiding a damaged server. The most heartbreaking stories come from the families torn apart by this exodus. Dr. Martinez, a climate scientist who moved to Australia, hasn't seen his elderly parents in 18 months because they're too frail to travel and he's too afraid to return. Dr. Kim, a biotechnology researcher now working in South Korea, missed her daughter's wedding because she couldn't risk being detained at the border. These aren't just professional relocations. They're forced separations that are tearing apart the human connections that make scientific collaboration possible. The ripple effects extend into unexpected corners of American society. The local economies that depended on high-skilled workers are collapsing. The restaurants, shops, and services that catered to research communities are closing their doors. The real estate markets in university towns are crashing as demand evaporates. The tax base that funded local schools and infrastructure is eroding as high-earning professionals relocate to other countries. The communities that once prided themselves on being centers of learning and innovation are becoming ghost towns of abandoned potential. What makes this tragedy particularly devastating is its permanence. Unlike economic recessions that can be reversed with policy changes, brain drain creates institutional knowledge that can't be easily replaced. The relationships, the informal networks, the accumulated wisdom of decades of research, all of this is being lost permanently. Even if policies were reversed tomorrow, it would take generations to rebuild what's being destroyed today. The international response has evolved from opportunistic to strategic. Countries aren't just accepting American researchers. They're actively recruiting them with packages that go far beyond salary and benefits. Switzerland offers permanent residency and research funding that dwarfs anything available in America. Canada provides family reunification programs that help researchers bring their extended families to safety. Singapore offers startup incubators that turn research into commercial success stories. These countries understand that they're not just gaining individual talent, they're acquiring entire ecosystems of innovation. The final insult is that this disaster was entirely preventable. The policies that triggered this exodus weren't responses to any genuine crisis. They were political theater that prioritized ideology over intelligence, fear over facts, prejudice over progress. The America that once drew the world's brightest minds with the promise of freedom, opportunity, and the chance to change the world has become the America that drives them away with suspicion, hostility, and the threat of deportation. As the last flights depart and the laboratories go dark, as the whiteboards are erased and the research equipment is shipped overseas, as the dreams of American scientific leadership are packed into shipping containers bound for more welcoming shores, one thing becomes clear. America didn't just lose its best minds, it lost its soul. The country that once promised to make tomorrow better has chosen to make today smaller, and the price of that choice will be paid not just by this generation, but by all the generations that will inherit a diminished America, a nation that chose to exile its own potential rather than embrace the diversity that made it great. The exodus is complete. The damage is done. The only question now is whether America will learn from this catastrophe or continue down the path that led to it, a path that ends not with greatness, but with irrelevance in a world that moved on without them.